these devices have zero transition time from the on state to off state and off state to on state, which means within no time they can change their state. So now what we will do with this condition, let us take the ideal condition as of now. So what we have, if we are giving the gating signal SR to this device, we will give the complementary signal SR bar to the bottom device. So top and bottom devices are operated in this complementary fashion. So we turn on the top device and then we turn on the bottom device. So these two are not turned on together. So the moment we are turning on the bottom, the top is off. This is what is the thing we have to ensure in the voltage source converter. In the current source converter, the situation is little different. We have this branch or this leg for the R phase. So we must ensure that current direction is always maintained, like the current source is always in the circuit. So to ensure that, we must ensure that there is certainly a path for current always, whether it is through load or direct shorting, here that is allowed. So we may turn on these two devices together for a short time also. There is no harm because here the current level is fixed. It's not changing. This is what the current source means. So that's why we may have some overlap between the top and bottom devices for the current source converter or current source inverter. Now, the multi-level system where we have more IGBTs connected in the leg. So we have 4 devices for the 3-level converter. Now how to decide the gating signal for this? So we can have so these are the clamping diodes, and then the DC bus midpoint is connected to the middle branch, and this is our output. So if we call this device S1, this device is 2, this device is 3, this device is 4, then what we have to ensure that our first and third device are operating in complementary fashion, and the second and fourth are operating in complementary fashion. So we need 2 gating signals over here which are independent, and the other 2 are dependent on that. So this way we ensure that we are not shorting the DC bus ever while we are operating the converter. So these are the things we need to keep in mind related to the converter when we are operating it. Now this is all ensured when we are generating the PWM waveform from our controller. We ensure these things. So there are many other arrangements which we will discuss in future classes. So there is something called dead time and or the blanking time. So these kind of things we ensure there. So this we will discuss in future classes. First we need to understand how and what we are generating from this converter. Now we have realized the converter and what we are generating. What is the impact of that on the load? So let us say, taking the generic converter only, the 2-level converter. So the R is connecting to 1 or 2, which means the positive DC bus or the negative DC bus, and it is generating this voltage. Let's say square wave operation, what we call it. So at pi, the bottom device is switched and top device is turned on. So we have plus VDC by 2 voltage applied up to the pi angle, and then we have minus VDC by 2 applied for the rest of the time. Now what happens? This is one waveform. Now we may also have another waveform. Let us say you start with VDC by 2, but you switch down at pi by 2. And then you continue up to 3 pi by 2, and then you again make it plus VDC by 2 at 3 pi by 2. This is also a valid waveform. It's an AC waveform. So essentially what we are doing, what is happening, what's the difference between the two waveforms, what components we are feeding to our load, and moreover, we may have some more waveforms. Let us say one another waveform I am having, which is having a transition near the middle of the half cycle, so which means at the pi by 2, and then something like this it is having. So these are the different angles. Let us say this angle is alpha, and this is by some chance pi minus alpha, then this is some pi plus alpha, and this is 2 pi minus alpha. So let's say somehow we have decided these are the angles, and we are generating this waveform VRO. So all these waveforms, definitely we know these are not same. But what is the difference? How to know that? And what impact it is creating on the load when we are applying this voltage? So of course, we have three-phase induction motor to apply these voltages, and we have to see in terms of what current or torque or flux, let us say, these things are generating, how that is advantageous or disadvantageous, these things we will see. But first, we need to know what we are actually feeding into the system, which means we need to know which are the frequency components associated with that waveform, what we are feeding, and what is the magnitude of each frequency component. So let's say we have given the square wave waveform to the load. Now, what all components? So definitely it's a repeating waveform, pi to 2 pi, and this cycle is repeating after every time period t. So by experience we can say that yes, if it has some repeating pattern, then definitely it is made up of lot of harmonic components, and those are sinusoidals. So this is what the Fourier series or Fourier theorem also says. If there is a repeating waveform, let us say VRO, then it can be divided, or it can be expressed in terms of different components. Let us say it may have a DC component, or it may have cosine components having frequency from 1 to infinity, where 1 is the this fundamental time period of this waveform, and then multiples of that. So something like this cos and theta. So sum of all those cosinusoids which may be there, or there could be sinusoids of the same frequency. So it may have this, or it may have both, including some DC component. So now we need to know what exactly we are feeding in the machine. So this is what is the Fourier analysis, what we are going to use for some part of this lecture to understand what we are feeding in our motor or in our load. Now this A naught is basically the DC component, which means the average value of this waveform. And for most of the cases, because we are ensuring that it is AC, so we do not intentionally generate any average value in the output waveform. So for most of our waveforms, I mean all the waveforms, we will ensure that this DC component is 0. So for your interest, you may go and check the DC component like this. So just take the average of whatever waveform is there. So that will give you the AC, or that will give you the DC component of this waveform. So of course, if this is having equal magnitudes for given for equal time period, then the DC component will be 0. Now, what about other components available over there? So these are the standard expressions given how to compute these components, the cosine and sine. So if you want to derive, you can go ahead and look through some literature and you can derive how these things are coming up. But what this is basically saying that we will understand. Let us say V theta is a signal which is having only fundamental component. Let's say some K1 cos theta and K2 sin theta. So basically a fundamental voltage which is having some phase shift. So it has both the sine and cosine components. Now if you do the Fourier analysis for this waveform, what will happen that any frequency which you are multiplying over here cos n theta, whichever is matching with this, let's say V theta has fundamental component, the first harmonic. So that particular cosine or sine coefficient will be non-zero. And all other frequencies will give zero value. The reason being, when you multiply two sinusoids, let's say sine omega 1t and multiply sine omega 2t. So what you have, if you take the average by pi or something, so this average value d theta or dt, so what you will find that this will actually come up as the harmonics of difference and sum of the sinusoids. Now these sinusoids will have, so of course t is there, will have average value 0 if omega 1 is not equal to omega 2, which is obvious. So this is a sinusoid. Let's say omega 1 is equal to omega 2, then at least this component will be present over there. So this becomes 0 and then this means this has some average value. Cos 0 equal to 1. So other component will go to 0. So any time when we have omega 1 not equal to omega 2, this will result into 0 coefficient. And if omega 1 is equal to omega 2, we will have non-zero coefficient. So this is what we are basically doing in the Fourier transformation. Also, we are multiplying a particular frequency of sinusoid with our pole voltage. So this will result into the coefficients only corresponding to the components which are there in the pole voltage waveform, and all other components will be 0. So for suppose if I do the Fourier analysis for this, the 6-step waveform, what I am supposed to get so this VRO theta will come out to be sum of all odd harmonics going up to infinity and having a magnitude of 2 VDC by pi times of n pi times of sine n theta. So this will be the harmonics which are present in the system, which means we have first, we have third, we have fifth, we have seventh, and so on. So we do not have any DC component or second harmonic or fourth harmonic. All these harmonics are 0. Why? Because this waveform actually doesn't contain that. Now why that is happening, how that is happening, we'll see little later. But as of now, this is what is coming out in the 6-step operation. So you can go on, do some more exercise on this on your own. So you will understand how this Fourier is calculated, and these expressions you may try to get on your own. So now the thing which I am trying to point out over here is that we have, let us say, fundamental component of 2 VDC by pi. This is the magnitude. So actually if we write, so representing it with a small letter v1, 2 VDC by pi sine theta or sine omega t, where the magnitude v1 is 2 VDC by pi. Which means what? For the 6-step operation or whatever this voltage we are feeding, the square wave what we are feeding is having a fixed fundamental component. What it is implies that for a given DC, of course. So what it implies that if we want to generate the variable voltage, variable frequency component, this is not possible in this mode because there is no other variable apart from VDC which can change the fundamental magnitude. Frequency we can vary because that is in our control. When to turn on, when to turn off, this we can vary. But the fundamental voltage we cannot vary. If we try to change that from our VDC voltage, that will take very long time to change from one voltage to another because this has very large time constant. So that's why this is generally not used for changing V1 or the magnitude of any fundamental component. So then what we should do? We should have some degree of freedom in our PWM waveform itself, which will allow us to change the fundamental component at least. So let us say if by some intuition I am introducing a notch in the waveform which I drew earlier. So let's say this is having a notch at the middle of the half cycle, and similarly at the middle of the other half cycle also. So these angles, let us say by some means I have got this. So this is my VRO. Now for this waveform, and these levels are VDC by 2 plus and minus VDC by 2. So for this waveform, if you do the Fourier analysis, what we will get basically, we will get the component V1 given as 2 VDC by pi multiplied by 1 minus 2 cos alpha times of sine theta. So this is our magnitude V1, the fundamental component magnitude, which is 2 VDC by pi 1 minus 2 cos alpha. Again, this you can take as practice and prove this that it is coming to this value. So now what we see over here, if we put alpha equal to pi by 3, our V1 would be 0. And if we put alpha equal to pi by 2, V1 would be equal to 2 VDC by pi, which is corresponding to square wave. So, which means when we are varying our alpha, we are changing our fundamental component. So from a minimum value, let's say 0 to the maximum value. So square wave is basically the maximum value. We cannot have anything more than that in terms of fundamental component. So from the minimum, that means 0 to the maximum, we are able to vary our fundamental component. So this is how if you plot on a graph paper with respect to alpha and you are varying this pi by 3 to pi by 2, so the component will actually change, like at pi by 3 it is 0 and then it will go on up to 2 VDC by pi. So this is the limit 2 VDC by pi. So this is how it's of course not a line but a cosine kind of curve. So this is what we are getting. So Of course, when we are going for pi by 2, basically this notch is going close to 0 and then it's only the square wave operation. That's what we see. And when we are near pi by 2, sorry, pi by 3, that time it is only a third harmonic waveform. So of course, this third harmonic waveform will have some zero fundamental component because it is at 3 times the frequency of the fundamental. So something like that. It's not very accurately drawn. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say over here that yes, we have got a degree of freedom alpha and we can vary these components. Now, this is true for V1 we have got. But what about other harmonics? For Vn n not equal to 1. So we have 2 VDC by n pi 1 minus 2 cos n alpha. Now what about this? These harmonics what are getting immersed in the system along with the fundamental component. So which means we have V3 equal to 2 VDC by 3 pi times of 1 minus 2 cos 3 alpha and V5 equal to 2 VDC by 5 pi 1 minus 2 cos 5 alpha and so on. We have all the odd harmonics over here. So let us say if we are fixing alpha over here, let's say we fix alpha such that we are getting this value of fundamental component. In a way, we have also fixed the values of V3 and V5 and other harmonics, which means the harmonics and the fundamental component are not independent. These are not independent. They are all dependent on same value of alpha. So if you give alpha equal to some 70 degree, you know what V3, what V5 and all these things you will be inserting in the system. Now, that is good. You have controlled V1 and you are injecting some harmonic which you know now, and you can also plot like how V3 varies and then how V5 varies when you go on doing this plotting against alpha. So V3 will somewhat vary like this, where this limit is 2 VDC by 3 pi, and then your V5 will have something like something similar to this kind of variation. So which means these harmonics can be at times very high. So value of V3 particularly is pretty high for the system. Now we need to understand when we are injecting these harmonics in the system, actually which are the harmonics which are harmful for the system. This we need to understand, which means what can you call as bad harmonic, which you must take care, and which are okay to have. It's not good, but okay to have in the system. There is not much problem. So this difference, let us try to understand. Then we can know which harmonic we need to get rid of and what we can do to make that happen, to achieve that. So let us again talk from the induction motor point of view. So because this is mainly done for that. So we know that the per phase equivalent circuit for the induction motor for the fundamental component is this. So we have RR by S, then LLR, LM, magnetizing reactance, inductance, then the leakage in the stator, RS, and which is where we are feeding our input supply VS. So it's having these components IM, IR, and so on. And this we have approximated for another circuit where we are bringing our magnetizing inductance in the front, and then we have all other impedances after that. So this is approximate, so we can use it whenever we have good amount of slip value. So now this is Vs given over here, Is, Im, and this is some current, let us say I1. I will not call it IR because it is approximate. Now we want to understand from this circuit point of view is what is happening with the harmonics. So we know that when we are feeding harmonics, it is like some nth frequency. So if we have 50 hertz fundamental, we may have 150 hertz or 350 hertz, because only odd harmonics let us take as of now. Or in general, we may have any nth frequency, which is multiple of our fundamental. So if our fundamental is having omega s, or let's say for simplicity omega, then the harmonic will have n omega synchronous frequency. So what will happen with that? So because of this, the first thing what you can observe when we are having the magnetizing inductance branch over here, Lm, which was having impedance of 1 by j omega Lm. Now for the harmonic component, the x, which you can write with a subscript of mn, that will actually be okay, not inverse. So now this will have a factor of n getting multiplied over there. So which means the magnetizing reactance will impose lot of impedance for any other harmonic order which is higher than the fundamental. So in a way, this Im component corresponding to the harmonic frequency n can be written as this, and Lm being very high, this can actually be regarded as 0, or this can be ignored. So which means that our harmonic voltage is not generating any appreciable flux in the air gap. Now if we ignore that, which means we are ignoring the magnetizing branch, so what we are left with is the other impedances which are coming over there. Now we are feeding Vn over here, and we have to understand what is In, how to compute that. So first thing we need to understand what is this slip. It is associated with the harmonic frequency, so let's call it Sn. So we know that slip for the fundamental component is defined as omega s minus omega r by omega s. Now if you have to write the same thing for the nth harmonic, we will have the synchronous frequencies multiplied by n. So which means n times of synchronous frequency, whereas the rotor is the same speed omega r. So this will be approximated to very close to 1, because omega r is very less than n omega s. So you can compute, let us say you take fifth harmonic and you compute this value, so this will come close to 1.2 or something. So which is very good as 1, and as you go for higher order harmonic, this will come even closer to 1. So this is how it is. So Sn for any other harmonic frequency can be approximated to 1. Now we are having some simplification in our circuit. We have these impedances now. Now again, because we are feeding the nth harmonic, so the leakage inductances, let us say XLS and XLR, these will have the n getting multiplied to that impedance. So which means the value of XL, which is XLS plus XLR, is going to be very high than RS plus RR, which means we can ignore the resistance part in this circuit. And finally, what we will be left with, only the leakage inductances in the equivalent circuit. So then the job is simpler. We know that what this voltage is going to face when we apply any nth harmonic in the induction motor. So now we can write our In very simply as Vn by J n omega LL, where LL is nothing but sum of both the leakages, LLS plus LLR. This is what our IN is. So now we know, if we know what Vn we are feeding, we can simply compute what is the value of IN given for a motor. So this is how we can do our calculation. Now what this calculation suggests, that the magnitude of IN is basically coming proportional to, let us say the other things if we ignore, is coming to 1 by n or Vn by n. It's coming proportional to the magnitude of that particular harmonic and divided by its order. So which means if our order is increasing, then the IN tends to reduce, given we are injecting the same amplitude of all the harmonics. So there is some kind of natural filtering happening for this induction motor. So the leakage inductances are basically filtering out the harmonic voltage which are at higher frequencies. So higher frequency harmonics are kind of getting filtered. Filtered means the corresponding current value is lower. Comparatively, when we have low order harmonic, we will have high IN comparatively compared to the higher frequency harmonic. So this is what we do. Now we know which harmonic we can afford to have in our system. So any harmonic which is sitting at high frequency, let's say 20th frequency or 30th frequency, 38 times of the fundamental or 28 times of the fundamental, these are okay. We can have those frequencies in our input voltage because we know that the corresponding current is going to be 1 by 20th or 1 by 30th and so on. So we can afford to have those high frequency components. But we must somehow avoid the low order frequencies or the low frequency components. These we can regard as bad harmonics. Where these we can be okay with that. There is no problem. Any significant problem is not there. So that will be naturally filtered by the system. Now, this analysis, what we are doing for induction motor, is kind of very generic analysis, which means this is true for even any other system. Let us say, even if we have a grid connected system, or we have any other motor, let's say PM motor or something else is there, then if we draw the per phase equivalent of that system, it will basically be drawn as this. So here this is what our inverter is generating, the VI, and this is our grid voltage or back EMF. So anything you can say. And this is the impedance. Let's say in case of grid connected, we have boost inductor. In case of PM, this is again leakage, or this could be another additional inductor in between. So this is what our per phase system looks like. The single line diagram of the system, three-phase system. Now we know that our VI is basically having some fundamental component and then it is having harmonic components. So it is combination of that. And whereas our VG is having only fundamental component, the grid or back EMF is generally supposed to be free from the harmonics. So then if we just separate out these components from the inverter side, so let's say this is V1 generated by the inverter and this is the harmonic generated by the inverter. So this is how our per phase single diagram would look like, single line diagram. Now what we know, that if there are two frequencies in a system, omega 1 and omega 2, In the same system, if we have two frequencies, these will not interact with each other, which means, let us say if we have a source of frequency omega 1 and another source of frequency omega 2, then for the omega 1 source, omega 2 is kind of not there. It is absent or shorted. And whereas with respect to omega 2, the omega 1 is shorted. So this is the meaning of that they do not interact with each other. So if we have to compute the current in this system where we have two different frequencies, we can simply apply superposition and we can have for the omega 1 and for the omega 2. Now the current corresponding to 1 and current corresponding to 2 can be computed independently, and then you can add these two. So the total current would be I1 plus I2. So this is the meaning of no interaction. Now this is what we will use in this system also. So V1, the component generated by the inverter, will interact with the grid because these two have the same frequency, whereas the harmonic component, having all the frequencies much higher than the grid, will have only a shorted impedance. So applying superposition, this is how the fundamental component will look into the system, and this is how our harmonic will see the system. This is only harmonic, no other fundamental component in the converter. This is only the fundamental component of the inverter output and no other harmonic. Now these two can be solved and superposition can be applied to get the actual current. Now we know what is I1. We can easily solve for two sinusoidal sources and having some phase difference or something and then impedance. And we have the I harmonic, which we can solve similar to what we have done earlier, VH by N omega L. So we can put a J over here. This is the nth harmonic frequency. And this I1 can be computed here. So again, the total current can be written as I1 plus IH. Now this is what I am pointing at, that whatever we have analysis, what we have done for induction motor can actually be used for any other system having inverter and other EMF connected to that. So this is in general true for any system, and the principle what we have given for the system, that the higher harmonics or the high frequency harmonics are kind of okay to be in the system. This is true for any system. So because this is universally true. Every system will have that natural filtering because of L present in the system, whether it is leakage or additional inductor connected. So that's why we can afford to have these high order harmonics. These are okay to be there in the system, but we need to worry about the low order harmonics which are coming into the system. Now we will understand few things related to the waveform. How can we avoid some of the harmonics in the system, or actually what all properties our PWM waveform should have? So how it should be realized? What is called as good PWM waveform? And what is the metric of that good factor or goodness factor, what we can say? Now let us say there is a waveform. For example, if I draw having a pulse, then there is pi by 2, then having another pulse, and then this is the middle, and then having a continuous pulse for a long time, and then the cycle. So this is what, let us say, this waveform we are generating in our system. Now, we need to understand that what we can have in the system. Let us say when we know that we are trying to kind of avoid some of the lower order harmonics, but which harmonics and how to avoid, that we will understand from here. So let us say this is the waveform we are generating. So certainly we know if this pattern is repeating, I am again emphasizing on that. If this pattern is repeating, we will have the fundamental component and we will have multiples of that. So this n can now be 2, 3, 4, 5, any number, because I am not specifying any particular value for these alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1, beta 2, gamma 1, gamma 2, and even it may have DC component also. So although these levels are equal, but the intervals may be unequal, so it may have DC component also. Now coming to the first condition first, what do I mean by the waveform must be repeating? So what is the meaning of that? Let us understand that thing first. So let us say we have a waveform. Let's say I draw 2, 3 cycles. So up to here 2 pi, and then again up to here, let's say 4 pi, and then we have 6 pi. So let's say I draw some 2, 3 cycles of this waveform, and once I have something like this, another time I have something like this, and then I have something like this. What is happening that the waveform is not repeating itself after the time period or designated time period t. So what will happen to this waveform? Which all things, unnecessary things, would be getting injected to the system. So first of all, we know that if this waveform is not same as this waveform, there is tendency that it may have different V1 values in all the different intervals. So all this V11, V12, V13, all this could be different. This is first thing, the first problem it may have. Now let us say, even if by some chance we are maintaining the same V1, V2, let's say this is maintained. Still, what will happen? So what we will observe that, let us say now after 3 cycles, this pattern has repeated itself. So 3 cycles we are having like this, and then again 3 cycles like this. So this pattern is repeating after 3 cycles. So if we do the Fourier analysis and then the frequency spectrum plotting, what we will see basically is that for this waveform, there will be some fundamental component, let us say this, assuming that this is uniform and same fundamental for all the 3 cycles. Apart from this, what this will have is another low frequency component sitting on this waveform. So 1, 2, 1.5 here. Something like this sitting on this waveform. So this is a lower frequency harmonic than the fundamental, which is also called as the subharmonic. Subharmonic means the frequency of the harmonic n could be 1 by 3 or 1 by 5. Now, this number n is actually like this, 1 by 7 or 1 by 10 or 1 by 100. So this is the number of cycles after which it is repeating itself. That pattern is repeating itself. Now we know that the higher harmonics are filtered easily, lower harmonics are filtered with more difficulty. So which means then our subharmonic, if it is having lower frequency than the fundamental itself, then it is going to be even more difficult to filter out that. So we must avoid these subharmonic frequencies in our system. How can we avoid? If we maintain the repeatability of the waveform after every time period t. So in short, what I can say that any VRO, let us say if we are generating, this must be equal to VRO 2 pi plus theta. This is the first condition which we must fulfill for any waveform. PWM waveform, this is called full wave symmetry. We must maintain this FWS to have system free from subharmonics. Otherwise, these subharmonics will be sitting in our input voltage and it could be damaging for our motor drive or any other system. These are very difficult to filter out and hence these are more damaging. Now, once we have maintained this this full wave symmetry, what is the other thing that we can have in our waveform? So one more condition I will discuss today and then we will discuss further in the next class. So let us say our waveform, two waveforms I will draw over here for comparison. So one waveform, let us say having pi here, 2 pi here, and it is something like alpha 1 to alpha 2, and then here also something similar to that, and the angles are pi plus alpha 1 and pi plus alpha 2. Whereas this second waveform, we have alpha 1, alpha 2, and then we have different angles, let us say beta 1 and beta 2. So please mind that in all these waveforms, we have same DC bus. So DC bus is not changing. This DC level is same. I am only changing the angles in the waveform. So now, what is the difference between these two waveforms? So we are maintaining same fundamental, that is ensured. So fundamental in this, let's say waveform A and waveform B. So we have V1A equal to V1B. This is maintained. We are not disturbing that. And we are having same DC bus voltage. Now, carefully if you see what happens when we talk about the even harmonic. So somewhere, let's say here is pi by 2 and somewhere here is pi by 2 and similarly some 3 pi by 2 somewhere. So what will happen? Let us say our second harmonic or any even harmonic. So the lowest one is second. So what will happen? The waveform for the second harmonic will be something like this. And similarly for this also. Now again, if you do the Fourier analysis and come up with the expressions for this component for n equal to 2, what you will find is that this waveform will get all those components an equal to bn equal to 0 for n equal to even. Whereas the waveform B will have non-zero components for all n even. So what we are doing basically, we are maintaining some symmetry within the waveform. What symmetry we are maintaining in waveform A is we are inverting whatever is there in the positive half cycle. So let's say whatever wave shape or wave pattern we have in this positive half, we have exactly inverted in the negative half. So which is why the average, if you take for the second harmonic, this will sum up to 0, which is not true for the waveform B. So it may have a different average for the positive half and negative half, because these two wave shapes are not equal or not same. So this kind of symmetry where we maintain the kind of, you can say, the inversion kind of things, whatever we have in the positive half, we just invert in the negative half. So this kind of symmetry is called the half wave symmetry. So basically what we are doing for VRO theta, this is always true. If we move theta from the 0 on one side and theta from pi on the other side, we will have the inverted values for VRO. So this we must maintain to eliminate all the even harmonics. This will ensure no even harmonic, including DC. So in our PWM waveform, if we maintain this second condition, which is the half wave symmetry, we can get rid of all the even harmonics which might be there. So that's why these symmetries we must ensure. Now our waveform may have only first or third or fifth or seventh and so on, but no even harmonic and no DC component. So that's what we can do. So two things we have learned today. The full wave symmetry we must maintain to avoid any subharmonic component, and then the half wave symmetry we must maintain to avoid any even harmonic. So with this I stop here, and next class we will discuss some more symmetry conditions which could be useful for the PWM waveform, and then we will go on see like what else can be done